The CloudFrame suite provides a guided journey leveraging two ultimate tools for an organization's legacy modernization needs: Atlas and Code Navigator. These products use a deterministic AI model, and GenAI access for Atlas is mandatory, while optional for Code Navigator. The journey begins by uploading the legacy application artifacts as shown on the screen, which I have already done here. And now I will click Proceed. At this point, through reverse engineering, Atlas will perform a deep analysis on the ingested artifacts, creating a simulation as if the application is running in production. And by doing this, it will be able to create a full dependency analysis and program correlation report, which we will see in the next screen, and also create a knowledge graph that will become the underlying single source of truth. Now, an SME can download the report here or view it right within our UI, and Atlas has identified the artifacts ingested as well as its attributes as shown here. Within the call chain graph, if I click on one of these, this is going to represent the flow of JCL and COBOL program correlation and give the developer and SMEs the ease of understanding to plan their modernization waves. Scrolling down a bit more, here we can see the transformation status, and this is going to help mitigate risk and prevent costly rework in case the identified artifacts within the application have not actually been ingested. And if this is the case, the Atlas wizard will work with the user to resolve this situation. Now, for additional strategy and planning, there's a program assessment summary, file information, database CRUD matrix, cyclomatic complexity, and more that the SME will have access to. Now, once the assessment planning is complete, the blueprint feature of Atlas is going to create a program-specific HLD with business context. So if I click on one of these, here we can see the business overview. And this is going to really give the SME an understanding of the program goals and can also lead to generating business-intensive comments during code generation. The SME can also see business requirements here, and we can see a functional flow diagram, as well as technical and data specs. And here, this is going to allow architects and SMEs to really design their code transformation without manually having to extract information. For example, designing the program and class structure, or within database, being able to transform the database calls from the legacy application. And if I click on one of these tables, we can actually see the data definition here. Now, the SME will have the option to make a correction, while 99% of the time the information within Atlas is very accurate and this won't be necessary. But if they do want to make a correction specific to the organization or some of the business intensive standards that are ever changing, they do have the option to do so, and that change is going to be recorded with the date and time as well as the original versus the corrected. Now, once we've been able to design the transformation, now an SME might want to validate the business goals of the application. So within the business docket, the latest feature of Atlas, we're able to create a fully comprehensive business requirement document holistic to the entire application. And with just a click of a button here, we'll be able to generate a system design overview, key business objectives, business requirements, core business flows, process descriptions, and more. And we'll have the option to download here, or the SME can simply preview the document right within the UI. Now here, once again, the SME has an option to make a correction here. They can view business requirements, system design overview. This can include file inventory, developer notes, operational traces, and more, core business flows and process descriptions. And so Atlas is able to look into a black box legacy system and then interpret and extract the business intentions of the application, providing system design, graphical displays, and much more. And our customers find tremendous value in this because it provides a jumpstart to their modernization process and removes the bottleneck of having to wait for business analysts and SMEs to create this documentation. And furthermore, some of the diagrams and workflows that are created here are not actually available in a regular BRD, giving analysts and SMEs even more insight into the business intentions of their application. Now, while the documentation generation is quite powerful, the AI SME can provide natural language query directly on the knowledge base, and using a deterministic model, you'll get a consistent and accurate answer each time you query. For example, I can ask, explain data lineage for TRDPB000. And so at this point, we're going to be able to see that this program writes to a settlement queue table. And if I expand here, we can actually see the full trace of the data lineage. And we have the option to download here as well. as well as a functional flow diagram that the SME can also download. Now, after identifying the application business goals, the legacy application is going to be categorized into business subdomains, which will ultimately lead to business-intensive structure within the converted Java application. And after decades of ownership by different SMEs or team members, programs may have been added to an application as part of a patch job before a release, or maybe an urgent production fix. So if a developer clicks Edit here, Categorize actually provides an inbuilt tool with an easy drag and drop mechanism to adjust the categorization as an option. So I can drag the entire application here. And if we can take this JCL, for example, with an acceptance, and maybe we deem that this should not only be an acceptance, but this is relevant to acceptance and settlement, for which reason it should be listed as a comment module. And if we're satisfied, we can save the changes. And now here we can see the original suggested architecture. And in red, we can see this has been removed. And if I scroll down all the way here, now in green, we can see the modified architecture, where we have added this JCL to the comment module. Once I'm satisfied, I can click Publish Changes. And now at this point, we have entered back into the CloudFrame Modernization Suite dashboard. Here we have an aggregated view of all of our applications after completing our assessment. And now we're ready to actually transform this legacy application into Java. Now, if I take acceptance, for example, and click Edit Application, now here we can give ourselves about a week to complete the transformation. And most of the time here is going to be taken for testing and validation, while the transformation itself is going to be almost instant. We can add a dependent application if we wish to. And at this point, now we have entered Code Navigator. Here, the developer has the option to add any rule configurations. Without adding any rule configurations, the code that is going to be out of the box is going to be 100% functionally equivalent and numerically precise. And the generated version of the code, which will be the V2 version, can be applied with these rule configuration, which we will be sending over to you after this video. We have options to add dictionary rules. We have options to add DB2 to Oracle, or for example, DB2 to Postgres for a data layer rule. We can add SonarQube rules to check our code, or additional custom rules, usually following the 12-factor app methodology for cloud native code. Now here we can actually transform our code into 100% functionally equivalent and numerically precise Java. So I can see the JCL here. And if I click transform here, now using a fully deterministic model, it's going to compile the code, aggregate it, create a Maven project, and create a Spring Boot, or if it's JCL, then Spring Batch project out of it. And this is going to give us the option to download the code here. And by doing this, I've effectively transformed my code into functionally equivalent, numerically precise, modern, and performant Java within a day, which is going to be about 10 times faster than it would take to do manually over the course of many months in elapsed time. Now I'll download this code here, and you will have this sent over to you after this video. Now there's additionally a test feature within Code Navigator, which allows you to actually validate the functional equivalence of your mainframe and Java output. So here I can go ahead and upload my Java output file, as well as my mainframe output file. And the Atlas wizard is going to tell us that we have functional equivalence success. And even if they were not successful, for example, if we had found an issue, which most of the time is not going to be the case, the Atlas wizard is going to let us know of this and allow us to make sure that we do reach that functional equivalence success. Now, if I view the files, this is going to be very similar to the mainframe Super C or the Beyond Compare tool that allows you to really validate byte by byte and make sure that you do have that functional equivalence. Now, the last feature within Code Navigator is the deploy, and this is going to allow you to deploy to GitHub right from the Code Navigator UI. And this way you can trigger all your Jenkins pipelines and processes to run your applications.